Welcome to Live, Laugh, Talk. I'm your host, James Graham, and it is a joy to be here with you today. In this episode, we will begin with the topic entitled, Are We Truly Innocent Until Proven Guilty? Then we will transition to our segment, How Did We Get Here? Followed by our hobbies and special interest section, and then conclude with our sunflower message. If you have something you'd like to say, an idea, or any other discussion, please tune in at admin@livelaughtalk.com. That's admin@livelaughtalk.com. In addition, if listening on Spotify, you can add a voice memo as well as comments and participate in our poll. Also, wherever you listen to the podcast, please follow us so that you're notified of the new episodes when they're released. The topic that we will begin with is entitled, Are We Truly Innocent Until Proven Guilty? If a person is truly innocent until proven guilty, why is the defendant handcuffed and jailed until trial? Why is the defendant even called the defendant? Doesn't that by very definition means that the individual is defending his innocence? What we have is what's called a presumption of innocence. And that's a legal principle that every person accused of any crime is considered innocent until proven guilty. Under the presumption of innocence, the legal burden of proof is thus on the prosecution, which must present compelling evidence to the trier of fact, which will be a judge or a jury. If the prosecution does not prove the charge is true, then the person is acquitted of the charges. The prosecution must, in most cases, prove that the accused is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If reasonable doubt remains, the accused must be acquitted. In many countries and under many legal systems, including common law and civil law systems, not to be confused with the other kind of civil law which deals with non-criminal legal issues, the presumption of innocence is a legal right of the accused in a criminal trial. It is also an international human right under the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, where did this thinking come from? Well, it came from Roman law. The 6th century digest of Justinian provides as a general rule of evidence that proof lies on him who asserts, not on him who denies. It is there attributed to the 2nd and 3rd century jurist Julius Paulus Prudentissimus that it was introduced into Roman criminal law by Antonius Pius. A civil law system is a modern legal system derived from the ancient Roman legal system, as opposed to the English common law system. The maxim and its equivalents have been adopted by many countries that use as a civil law system, including Brazil, China, France, Italy, the Philippines, Poland, Romania, and Spain. What does the presumption of innocence actually mean? Sir William Garrow coined the phrase presumed innocent until proven guilty, insisting that defendants, accusers, and their evidence be thoroughly tested in court. In addition, presumption of innocence is in fact different than proven innocent. Think about it. A person truly cannot, in many cases, prove their innocence. For instance, if one is accused of adultery or a sex crime, can they actually prove that they did not have sex with the individual? Presumption of innocence serves to emphasize that the prosecution has the obligation to prove each element of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt, or some other level of proof depending on the criminal justice system, and that the accused bears no burden of proof. This is often expressed in the phrase presumed innocent until proven guilty, coined by the British barrister Sir William Garrow that we mentioned earlier during a 1791 trial at the Old Bailey. Garrow insisted that accusers be robustly tested in court. Now let's go back to that thought that it is the prosecution or these accusers that must prove, and not the accused, where they should bear no burden of proof. Well, in actuality, it's actually the opposite in many cases. If you are accused of a crime, you can't just sit there and just say, well, I have no burden of proof at all. Because if you did, you wouldn't even need a lawyer. You could just sit there and just wait on all this evidence to come in. You need a lawyer. And you need to prove that you're not innocent. It needs to go beyond a shadow of a doubt on your end. Burden of proof is on you too, because when those individuals come with their evidence, you've got to be able to prove that that evidence is either false or that it has been misconstrued in some way. So there is no such thing as the innocent, in quotation marks, bears no burden of proof. An objective observer in the position of the juror must reasonably conclude that the defendant almost certainly committed the crime. In 1935, in its judgment of Wilmington versus Director of Public Prosecutions, the English Court of Appeal would later describe this concept as being the golden thread running through the web of English criminal law. Garrow's statement was the first formal articulation of this. To ensure this legal protection is maintained, a set of 3 related rules govern the procedure of criminal trials. The presumption means that 1, with respect to the critical facts of the case, whether the crime charged was committed and whether the defendant was the person who committed the crime, the state has the entire burden of proof. 2, with respect to the critical facts of the case, the defendant does not have any burden of proof whatsoever. The defendant does not have to testify, call witnesses, or present any other evidence. And if the defendant elects not to testify or present evidence, the decision cannot be used against them. 3, the jury or judge is not to draw any negative inferences from the fact the defendant has been charged with a crime and is present in court and represented by an attorney. They must decide the case solely on evidence presented during the trial. That is the presumption. But you and I know that if you go into that courtroom, all types of things can happen that wasn't planned, that wasn't written. As mentioned before, you go in there with no proof on your end that you're innocent, or at least to the best of your ability, prove that you were not the person, or you did not commit the crime, or that intent was not anywhere near the situation. Well, you can find yourself behind bars. In addition, there are negative inferences that happen in court. You can sit there with an attorney, and there could be members of the jury that could look at you and the color of your skin, your nationality, what have you, or even that of your attorney, even the sex of your attorney, can determine what happens to you in that courtroom. And we wish that this wasn't the case. We wish that the law was set up like this, but those of you who have been on that other side of the gavel know exactly what we're talking about. Let's get back to the presumption of innocence. The right is considered important enough in modern democracies, constitutional monarchies, and republics that many have explicitly included it in their legal codes and constitutions. As a matter of fact, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 11, states, everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty according to law in a public trial in which he has had all the guarantees necessary for his defense. Now, guess where these words do not exist? That would be the U.S. Constitution. Although the Constitution of the United States does not cite it explicitly, presumption of innocence is widely held to follow from the Fifth, Sixth, and 14th Amendments. The case of Coffin versus United States in 1895 established the presumption of innocence of persons accused of crimes. Yet the Constitution itself does not say that. Interesting. But when we look at these amendments to the Constitution, and thank God there are amendments, and one day we're going to talk about the fact that amendments are being questioned now and even being removed and displaced. The danger in that. But for now, we're going to go back to the Fifth, Sixth, and 14th Amendment. These are the ones that establish presumption of innocence. The Fifth Amendment is the first one that we'll talk about, and one provision of it requires that most felonies be tried only upon indictment by a grand jury, which the court ruled does not apply to the state level. Another provision, the Double Jeopardy Clause, provides the right of defendants to be tried only once in federal court for the same offense. The Self-Incrimination Clause provides various protections against self-incrimination, including the right of an individual not to serve as a witness in a criminal case in which he or she is a defendant. Pleading the Fifth is a colloquial term often used to invoke the Self-Incrimination Clause when witnesses decline to answer questions where the answers might incriminate them. In the 1966 case of Miranda versus Arizona, the Supreme Court held that the Self-Incrimination Clause requires the police to issue a Miranda warning to criminal suspects interrogated while in police custody. Aren't we happy to have the Fifth Amendment? Because without it, you could be held on double jeopardy, meaning that you could be tried for the same crime multiple times. You also have a clause against self-incrimination. You don't have to answer any questions. You don't have to get on the witness stand. And aren't you happy about the Miranda warning? Sometimes the police get so excited they forget all about the Miranda rights and don't give them to you. And that could go against the prosecution. So a lot of good things happen from the Fifth Amendment. Well, what happened with the Sixth one? The Sixth Amendment guarantees criminal defendants 9 different rights, including the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury consisting of jurors from the state and district in which the crime was alleged to have been committed. Under the impartial jury requirement, jurors must be unbiased, and the jury must consist of a representative cross-section of the community. The right to a jury applies only to offenses in which the penalty is imprisonment for longer than 6 months. In Barker versus Wingo, the Supreme Court articulated a balancing test to determine whether a defendant's rights to a speedy trial had been violated. It is additionally held that the requirement of a public trial is not absolute, and that both the government and the defendant can, in some cases, request a closed trial. The Sixth Amendment requires that criminal defendants be given notice of the nature and cause of accusations against them. The amendment's confrontational clause gives criminal defendants the right to confront and cross-examine witnesses, while the compulsory process clause gives criminal defendants the right to call their own witnesses and, in some cases, compel witnesses to testify. The assistance of counsel clause grants criminal defendants the right to be assisted by counsel. In Gideon versus Wainwright and subsequent cases, the Supreme Court held that a public defender must be provided to criminal defendants unable to afford an attorney in all trials where the defendant faces the possibility of imprisonment. Let's go back and talk about the Sixth Amendment then. So, aren't we happy for it, be it that we can have a speedy trial, it can be public as well. There could be jurors, not just a single a judge. Also, the right to a jury applies to offenses where the imprisonment is longer than 6 months. So if it's a situation where it's not going to be a 6 month imprisonment, then a jury is not even necessary. And then there's also the right to confront, cross examine witnesses. Imagine if you had none of that. You couldn't cross examine anybody. Imagine if you couldn't call your own witness or compel somebody to testify on your behalf. And even worse, what if you had no public defender provided to you? So you're unable to afford an attorney. The other side got the greatest attorneys in the state. You've got nobody. What's going to happen to you? So aren't we happy of the provisions of the Sixth Amendment? Again, these amendments are to the Constitution. So before these amendments, anything happened. Imagine the people who were mistreated by the law because, again, the Constitution did not say you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. The 14th Amendment, the last one we'll examine. The amendment's first section includes several clauses, one of which is the Due Process Clause. The Due Process Clause prohibits state and local governments from depriving persons of life, liberty, or property without a fair procedure. The Supreme Court has ruled this clause makes most of the Bill of Rights as applicable to the states as it is to the federal government, as well as to recognize substantive and procedural requirements that state laws must satisfy. The Equal Protection Clause requires each state to provide equal protection under the law to all people, including all non-citizens within its jurisdiction. Now let's break this down. This actually exists in the case of slaves. You see, slaves were not considered, first of all, people. They were considered property. Secondly, and most embarrassingly, slaves had no rights at all, as they were considered Africans, not Americans. There comes the Equal Protection Clause. It wasn't created many years later to protect immigrants that come into our country. No, it was for the racist things that happened before it, which means, and can you imagine, all of the unlawful things that happened before this amendment. Because again, the Constitution did not protect slaves. The Constitution did not protect anyone in this case, and that it did not say that someone was presumed innocent. Aren't you happy for the 14th Amendment? Which, still, with all these amendments, do we truly have justice? Is someone truly innocent? So all this being said, if reasonable doubt is not proven, a person is innocent, correct? It says innocent until proven guilty. So if there's no reasonable doubt, if there is reasonable doubt, I should say, is that person innocent? No, they're not. Actually, for the rest of this person's life, the word innocent doesn't appear again in their life. A person is then considered not guilty. That is not the same as innocent. Now, why is one not innocent anymore? Well, let's break it down. Not guilty does not mean innocent, although it's easy to misunderstand the presumption as a positive declaration. They are different things. You see, nobody is declared innocent by the law. More importantly, it does not follow from the fact of non-conviction that the person accused did not do what they were accused of doing. It doesn't mean that they can't be held liable for it in a civil suit, which is determined on a different standard of proof. nor that they will necessarily succeed in a defamation claim against someone who has made the accusation publicly. So, are they truly innocent? No, they're not guilty because they could have done it, or they could have not done it, but a civil suit could arise, or there could be some defamation claim. See, there's so much entanglement in there. Innocent until proven guilty doesn't exist because you're truly no longer called innocent. You're not guilty if you come out of that trial and there's no reasonable doubt that was actually proven. And to explore this last point a bit further, say a person has accused another person of sexually assaulting them, and that has not resulted in the second person being convicted by a criminal court. This could be for many reasons. Maybe the complainant didn't make a police report, or possibly the police didn't lay charges, or the prosecution no-billed the case. Possibly there was a mistrial, or the accused was acquitted at the trial. So far as the criminal law is concerned, in any of those scenarios, the presumption of innocence stands. However, the complainant still believes the truth of his or her complaint, and she has the rights to. One of these is to pursue her complaint by other means, such as civil suit or public disclosure. If she takes the second course, she will risk being sued for defamation because an allegation of sexual violence is per se defamatory. She may or may not have a good defense, most likely the defense of truth. That defense may succeed. In that situation, the law will have vindicated the accuser, completely absent of a criminal conviction. So it would be nonsensical to assert that the accused is entitled to a presumption of innocence for all purposes. See, then this is a result that the legal system itself could deliver without any injustice. In other words, you may not be proven beyond a reasonable doubt as a criminal, but could still lose a civil case. We could take the case of O.J. Simpson. He was proven innocent of killing two people. Yet, the dollar amount was unimaginable of what happened to him in his civil case. We see this often. Okay, the person, even the DA could say, okay, well, we're going to just back off this. We're going to back up. We're not even going to prosecute on a criminal level. This happened in the case of Deshaun Watson, the quarterback in the NFL. Backed off. We're not going to pursue him as a criminal. Yet there were civil cases to come out of that. That way the legal system could deliver without injustice. Wasn't a criminal, yet in civil court, he or she could possibly lose. It simply defies logic to declare everyone in that greater mass to be factually innocent. More importantly, the law doesn't dictate that anyway. While the presumption of innocence is a fundamental right, legal proceedings involve complex factors. The quality of legal representation, the presentation of evidence, and the impartiality of the judicial system all contribute to the effectiveness of this principle. It's a cornerstone of justice, but achieving a balance between protecting the accused and pursuing justice remains an ongoing challenge in legal systems worldwide. So are we truly innocent until proven guilty? Honestly, the presumption of innocence exists beyond the courtroom to societal attitudes. Public discourse and media coverage play a significant role in shaping perceptions. Striving for an informed and unbiased public, coupled with legal safeguards, reinforces the principle's effectiveness. However, achieving a perfect balance continues to remain an ongoing challenge. Even though the U.S. Constitution does not presume innocence, its amendments that came about placed it into the public eye and into our judicial system. What's left is what we just stated. The many challenges that come out of it that are not mentioned. So we look at Lady Liberty, the symbol of justice, we should say. She's blindfolded, meaning that she doesn't see injustice. She has scales, and they're balanced, meaning that there is justice. There's no inequality. She has a sword, meaning that she will fight to protect the people. If only all of those things were true in every case. As I've mentioned in many episodes, I enjoy motorcycles. Love them. I have a Harley Davidson that I love like a son. If you don't believe me, you can stop by anytime and you'll just see me giving my baby a bath. My car might be dirty, but that Harley never is. He has a name, Harley. I ride to distress. I ride to relax. I ride for the fun of feeling the open road that I just can't get in a convertible. Just last week, a friend of mine walked up to me and said, "I worry about you riding that thing." I know my family worries too, as it was only 15 years ago that a hit and run landed me in ICU. Yet my surgeon was a rider and encouraged me to jump back on quickly if I was ever going to ride again. I actually purchased my new bike online while I was in recovery. You see, it's in my blood. Riding a motorcycle can be an exhilarating experience that gives riders a sense of freedom as they cruise around. I know I feel it. Motorcycles may only account for 3% of registered vehicles on the roads in the United States, but they unfortunately have a much higher rate of accidents than cars or other modes of transportation. The very fact to me that there's 3% of registered motorcycles on the road means that there's not enough motorcycle riders. You see, if there were more of us, there would be less of them to hurt us. That's the way we motorcycle riders see it. Because a lot of people who drive cars don't pay attention to what they're doing on the road. It was just in my last ride. I was coming home from my volunteer job. And I ride about 45 minutes on that ride. Enjoy it. Except this day, there was a man in a white construction van. He, I guess, looked over into his left lane. Obviously not, because I was right there. And he proceeded to just come over. Not slowly, rapidly. I had to think fast. I had to lean a touring bike all the way over like it was a sport bike and get into, fortunately, the next lane, the passing lane, which there was nobody coming. If there were, it would have had to been some maneuvering for me to just ride between them. Then when he saw me, he just raised his hand like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry." See, there's not enough paying attention because there's not enough people on the road that drive cars that ride motorcycles and pay attention. There's too much talking on phones. There's too much thinking about everything else and not looking out for that two-wheel vehicle. Us, my family worry, my friends worry because they've seen the horrible results. I have to remind my friends, though, I have a dear friend, one that's close to my heart. When I had that motorcycle accident that landed me in ICU, I had facial lacerations. I had because I didn't have on the right gear. I'm a gear person. I've got on I've got the helmet, I've got the jacket with the armor in it, pants the same way. Summertime is hot that way, but hey, I believe in protection. But that day, I had on a half helmet. It wasn't even a half helmet. It was, just some rinky stuff. No gloves, no armor. I was going to an individual's house to get my oil changed. And he was right down the road, less than 3 miles. But see, that's when most accidents occur, close to your home. But that day that I had that accident, she had an accident the same day, almost the same time. Yet she went through the windshield of her vehicle. She had one of those old school box Chevys, they call it, through the windshield. Lacerations, a lot more severe than mine. So we have to say, and again, she wasn't at fault in her accident either. I'm not gonna put her at fault. I wasn't at fault. She wasn't at fault. But here are the results. But oftentimes we have to be honest that it doesn't work out that way. Usually the person in the car is better protected than the person on the motorcycle. In this case, I came out on the better end of the stick. Motorcycle accidents, truthfully, are more likely to result in a fatality than any other vehicle due to the lack of safety features like airbags or seat belts. But could you imagine a seat belt on a motorcycle? Hmm, maybe you can. I don't know. What about airbags? What about if there was, I know I saw something about the future of motorcycles and it was talking about 2033 where the motorcycle just becomes one giant cocoon. If there's any danger, if a part of it is struck, then all of a sudden the motorcycle just becomes one big foam. Hmm, interesting. Motorcycle accident statistics grow nearly every year, even though the amount of riders remain relatively the same. In this segment, we're going to be honest. We're going to go over a wide variety of motorcycle accident statistics, the different types of motorcycles, and what outside factors have the biggest impact on motorcycle accidents. Well, first of all, we'll start off with how many motorcycle accidents happen per year. There were 82,528 motorcyclists that sustained injuries while riding in 2020. That number didn't change much in 21, 22. It still was over 80,000. On average, there are 468 injuries that occurred per 100 million vehicles and their miles, I should say, vehicle miles traveled over the course of the year. 468 injuries that occurred per 100 million vehicle miles traveled over the course of the year. How many people are killed in a motorcycle accident each year? There were a total of 5,932 motorcyclists killed in accidents last year, up from 8% from the year before, even though the rate per 100 million vehicle miles decreased by 2%. Motorcycle riders accounted for 14% of all traffic deaths and 17% of all occupant fatalities, despite only being 3% of registered vehicles and 0.6% of all vehicle miles traveled in the US. Awful numbers, right? And deaths have increased by 19% over the last 10 years, while death rates have jumped to 29% or 30.05 per 100 vehicle miles. These numbers, if just read, would discourage anyone from riding a motorcycle, right? Which states have the most motorcycle deaths? That would be California and Florida. They have the most amount of registered motorcycles too. But Louisiana has the highest rate of fatal accidents with 21.1 per 10,000 registered motorcycles. South Carolina and Mississippi were second and third, respectively, with fatality rates of 13.1 and 12.7. Now, honestly, I can understand the state of South Carolina having fatality rates. You know why? Because a helmet is optional. You can ride your motorcycle in South Carolina without a helmet. See, to me, you don't need laws in some cases. Some things should be common sense. I get in my car, it should be common sense that I put a seatbelt on. It should be common sense I get on my motorcycle that I put a helmet on. It common sense isn't so common, right? And which type of motorcycle accidents causes the most deaths? 70%, 76% of motorcycle accidents happen when the motorcyclist is hit from the front instead of the rear. Where you think that a motorcyclist will be hit on the rear? I was actually hit on the side of my motorcycle. So I was T-boned by a car. Only 7% of two vehicle crashes with a motorcycle occurred when they were hit from behind. So most are hit from the front. What are the most common causes of motorcycle accidents? Well, the most common cause of motorcycle accidents involve alcohol and poor weather conditions. I had another friend of mine who was riding his motorcycle and it began to storm. And instead of him pulling over, he continued in that storm. And the wind was so great that it began to blow trees down. Now you can imagine if it's blowing down a tree with roots, what that wind had to be doing to him on that motorcycle. There's no way I can imagine how he was keeping balance. Yet he was riding along. Tree fell in front of him. Of course, he hit the tree, flipped over the tree. ICU and rehabilitation for many months followed. He was fortunate, helmet on, safety gear, fortunate, but poor weather conditions equal accidents. Alcohol equal accidents. I have actually been in locations where there are bike rallies. Individuals sitting in the restaurant, downing 12 beers, multiple drinks, and they go right outside and hop on their motorcycle. Unimaginable to me. I'm not a drinker anyway, because I don't like the taste of alcohol. Y'all go ahead and laugh. I don't like the taste of alcohol. But if I did, again, there's this thing we mentioned, common sense. In fact, 25% of motorcycle riders involved in a fatal crash were impaired by alcohol, more than any other type of vehicle fatality. 25% in a fatal crash were impaired by alcohol. Are there more motorcycle accidents versus car accidents? Even though motorcycle accidents have a higher fatality rate, there were 30,262 more car accidents than motorcycle accidents last year. What is the rate of injury for motorcycle accidents each year? Well, motorcycle injuries peaked at 104,000 in 2016, with an injury rate of 508 per 100 million vehicle miles traveled in the United States. As of last year, injuries have dropped to 83,000 with an injury rate of 421 per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. So it's coming down, still higher than where we want to see it, coming down. Now, what type of motorcycle accident happens the most? Believe it or not, single vehicle motorcycle crashes accounted for 38.82% of all motorcycle crashes in 2021. Meanwhile, two vehicle crashes were 53.25% of all crashes, and three plus vehicle crashes were 7.92%. So, to answer that question, most of the time, 53.25% of the time, it's a two vehicle crash. Yet there are single vehicle crashes out there. I mean, we talked about my friend with the weather and the tree. We didn't talk about animals accounting to that. Deer in front of you, what have you, where that would be a single vehicle motorcycle crash. It would be considered that way since the deer didn't have a vehicle. So there's a lot that goes on. Then there's individuals, as I saw in Myrtle Beach at a bike rally. I was riding along, going the speed limit. I'm going to tell you right now, I ride slow enough to drive Miss Daisy. Some of my friends laugh. They say, "How do you even keep that bike balanced? You drive so slow." I'm not a speed demon, and I don't want to be. So I'm riding along, and I hear something sounds like the wind. This bike passes. I mean, they come up to me, pass me, kept going. Had to be going over a rate of 100 miles an hour. As he did, this gentleman lifts up the front wheel, and that was it. His passenger on the back of that bike came off. She landed on the road. I'm getting choked up thinking about it. Excuse me. She landed on the road. The bike kept on going. I pulled my bike sideways so that oncoming motorists would not run her over. They could see my bike. Another gentleman pulls up with his truck, does the same thing, turn it sideways, calling 911. I rushed to her side. Beautiful, beautiful young lady. I can see her face in my mind every night that I go to sleep, and especially during this segment. And I'm looking at her, and I could see that there was severe brain trauma. And I'm going to keep it that way because if I describe this to you, there's no way you can get through the segment. And she's looking at me. And I just started talking to her. I started telling her my name, holding her hand, and telling her how beautiful she was. And I kept saying, "Help is on the way. We've got an ambulance coming." And you could hear the ambulance in the background almost immediately when they were dialed. We have to give it to our first responders. They were coming almost immediately. And I'm just sitting there talking to this beautiful young lady. She smiled at me, and then she closed her eyes. The gentleman that she was riding with, by the time they found the bike, it was disintegrated. There was pieces of it everywhere. And he was, in a brutal sense, killed. And for what? These two people, I found out later because the mother wanted to speak, told the police officer she wanted to speak to the person, the last person that was beside her daughter. I happened to have followed. I was so traumatized. I went with the ambulance. I just, a lot to absorb. And I tell you, worst night of my life. Worse than what happened to me, where I ended up in the ICU because I'm still here with you. But just seeing that. And it was unnecessary. We find out from the mother that these two people didn't even know each other. You see, it's a custom for the guys to ride around on those bike weeks and things like that. And they got the fancy bike and they pick up the pretty girl and they ride together. And then he drops her off with her friends again. And it's an ongoing cycle. In this case, she rode with the wrong person. person she didn't even know. They were riding at a great rate of speed, did something stupid, like raising the bike has two wheels for a reason. You're riding on one wheel, no control at that rate of speed, and they're both dead. Horrible. I spent that night talking to that mother, and there are just no words. So, in this case, that takes us back to that single vehicle motorcycle crash. That was a single vehicle. That was a person riding ridiculously and losing their life. As a matter of fact, when I see a motorcyclist and they're doing some stupid tricks on the highway or they're riding in between cars, you know what I say to myself? Or if I'm in a car and I got a passenger, I say the date. The reason why I say the date is because that's the date of their death. There's no sense in the stupidity that I see with riders. And the problem that I see, I know I've stepped away from our our statistics, is that there's not enough riders who go to riding courses. I don't care if you've been riding 30 years, like yours truly. You need to go to a rider's course. And the reason being is not because you don't know how to ride. I mean, you could be the man. But what you learn in these rider's courses is how to prevent accidents. They'll mention scenarios in which you can avoid this accident. Like with the gentleman coming over on me, where do you think I learned that maneuver? It wasn't James is the greatest rider. I learned the maneuver, even though I'm a believer that the Lord saved me that day because there was nobody in that next lane. Yet, maneuver learned from a rider's course. I've been riding 30 years. But you know what the state has to do again? That common sense, where common sense doesn't come in. They have to say, oh, if you go to a course, we'll discount your insurance. You can put that amendment on your license and we'll give you a license right then and we'll discount you. That's the only reason why some people show up at these courses. But I don't care if you're a first-time rider. I don't care if you've been riding your whole life. Go to a course. Another thing, have on a helmet. I've been with friends of mine who got angry at me because I didn't have a spare helmet. And they were like, well, I could just ride with you on the back and nothing's going to... No! I don't care if you're the occupant or you're the rider. Have on a helmet. We're not going around the block with me and you don't have on a helmet. Not going to happen. And let's get to that point. How many motorcyclists wear compliant helmets? Compliant helmets. Not helmets that look cute, but we're talking about DOT compliant. 67% of motorcycle riders and 52% of passengers wear compliant helmets while riding. Whoa. Again, the passengers are not wearing their helmets. They're 15% less than the rider. Additionally, 6% of motorcycle riders wear non-compliant helmets, in addition to 4% of passengers. So there's no sense in even having a helmet on if it's not compliant. Because it's not compliant for a reason. It's not going to save you. It's not going to keep your head from bursting open in an accident, like a watermelon. So if it's non-compliant, it matters what, don't even put it on. What you putting it on for? I guess you're putting it on just to keep the police from bothering you. Because they're going to say, oh, he's got a helmet on, but that thing doesn't even have a DOT sticker in the back. I've seen fools with these things on. Yeah, just to be compliant with the law. And you wonder about the mentality of some people, right? And does the geographic area impact the number of motorcycle deaths? Urban areas accounted for 67.42% of motorcycle deaths last year, while only 32.58 occurred in rural areas of the country. That is not unreasonable. I would see that. Because again, it's on the highways and byways that I run into this type of trouble, like we just mentioned earlier. This is where I ran into the gentleman that, you know, tried to run me off the road. It was on the highway. So, yes, I can see that. Let's go further. What time of the day do most accidents occur? Well, last year, fatal motorcycle accidents occurred most commonly during the nighttime, but just barely. 50.44% of accidents occurred during the night, while 48.92% happened during the day. Specifically, 24% of fatal motorcycle accidents happen between 6 and 9 p.m. In what kind of weather do most motorcycle accidents occur? But throughout all of the motorcycle deaths that occurred last year, the weather was surprisingly clear 82.62% of the time. And let's go back to that nighttime. I had lights put on my motorcycle so that it looks like a Christmas tree when you're going down the road, and yet still some people don't pay attention. So it's about paying attention too. And even in the clear weather, like I'm a fair weather rider. I'm not out there when it's foggy. I'm not out there when it's rainy. I'm not out there when there's a possibility of ice being on the ground. 82% of the time, the weather was clear, and it still were deaths. And then going back to that intoxicated part, hard to believe, but yes, 40% of alcohol impaired motorcycle crash deaths happen at night. So you combine nighttime with alcohol. There you go. So we look at all these statistics. We have to ask ourselves, how did we get here? Have you ever seen a miniature ship in a bottle? I have. And I've stared at them for hours. If you took all of the time I've looked at them and tried to figure out how in the world did the builder do that? How did that ship get in such a small hole? Building a ship in a bottle can be a fascinating and intricate hobby. It requires patience and precision as you assemble and position the ship's components inside the narrow neck of that bottle. Many hobbyists find joy in the meticulous craftsmanship and the satisfaction of creating a miniature world within a confined space. If you're interested in starting this hobby, there are various kits and resources available to guide you through the process. Choosing the right materials, such as thin tweezers and specialized glue, is essential for success in this delicate craft. The process often involves constructing the ship with masts and sails that can be folded or collapsed for insertion into the bottle. Attention to detail is crucial, as the final result depends on how well you navigate the challenges of fitting everything through the bottle's opening. It's a hobby that combines creativity, problem solving, and a steady hand. Additionally, researching different techniques and styles can enhance your skills in ship in a bottle crafting. Some hobbyists focus on historical accuracy, meticulously replicating specific ship models, while others might take a more artistic approach, incorporating imaginative elements into their creations. The sense of achievement, though, when completing this ship in a bottle, is not only in the finished product, but also in the mastery of techniques and the journey of bringing a vision to life within a confined space. Joining online forums or local hobbyist groups can provide valuable insights, tips, and a sense of community for enthusiasts of ship in a bottle crafting. Sharing experiences and learning from others can enrich your understanding of the craft and open up possibilities for new projects. It's a hobby that allows for continuous growth and refinement of skills, making each creation a unique expression of both tradition and personal creativity. However, exploring the history and cultural significance of shipping a bottle art can deepen your appreciation for this unique craft. Understanding how this tradition has evolved over time and across different cultures adds a rich layer to the hobby. Whether you're drawn to the nostalgia of traditional maritime themes or inspired by innovative and contemporary twists, the world of ship in a bottle crafting offers a blend of artistic expression and historical connection. As you delve deeper into this crafting, consider experimenting with various bottle shapes and sizes to diversify your projects. Some enthusiasts enjoy incorporating landscapes, sea elements, or even intricate backgrounds within the bottle to create immersive scenes. This level of customization allows you to showcase your creativity and make each creation a unique masterpiece. The possibilities within this hobby are as vast as the open sea, inviting you to explore, refine, and personalize your craft. Be sure to document your progress and creations through photographs or a crafting journal, as this can be a rewarding aspect of the hobby. Not only does it provide a visual record of your skills, it also allows you to share your passion with others who may be interested. Additionally, reflecting on on a journey of creativity like this could possibly even lead to building a web page based on your ability. Also, consider attending local craft fairs, exhibitions, or themes that showcase your ship in a bottle creations. Sharing your work can give a broader audience and foster a sense of community as well as be profitable. I've seen many of these ships in a bottle for sale. And you can also consider it as a way of creating personalized designs for friends or family as unique gifts. Tailoring your creations to reflect individual interests or milestones adds a thoughtful and meaningful touch, turning your hobby into a source of cherished memories for both you and those who receive your handcrafted works of art. Exploring these challenging, often intricate works of art will build in you a way to explore your abilities, making each new project a captivating voyage of craftsmanship and creativity. In summary, a ship in a bottle craft is a meticulous and rewarding hobby that involves building miniature ships inside bottles. If you start with kits, learning techniques that are small, that's essential. Then join communities. Experiment with different styles and bottle shapes to enhance your experience. Document your progress. Showcase your creations and explore related hobbies that can contribute to such a fulfilling journey in this intricate craft. Crafting personalized designs for gifts and gradually advancing to more complex ship models will add depth to the hobby as well. So if you're interested in this, make sure that you take the time, have fun, and use your creativity and skill over time to develop some of the most beautiful art in the world. Our sunflower message is a song, unwritten, sung by Natasha Bedingfield. I am unwritten, can't read my mind. I'm undefined, I'm just beginning. The pen's in my hand, ending unplanned, staring at the blank page before you open up the dirty window. Let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find, reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions. Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Drench yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open Today is where your book begins. The rest is still unwritten. I break tradition. Sometimes my tries are outside the lines. We've been conditioned to not make mistakes, but I can't live that way. Staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window. Let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find, reaching for something in the distance. So close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions. Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Drench yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. How true those words. Many of us, we walk around keeping in all of the feelings that we have. We don't express them in word, song. They die with us. Don't let our words die with us. That's the one thing that I appreciate about podcasting. It's that my words won't die with me. They're recorded here, and they will be out there in cyberspace long after I'm gone. And I wish that for each and every one of you, do something that makes a difference in someone else's life, even in yours. Don't keep it in, because only you know the words on your lips, like that song brings out. Beautifully written and beautifully sung. I encourage you to go back and listen to that song as well. On Cash App, $ Live Laugh Talk at Live Laugh Talker, and on your podcast platform, you can donate to support our podcast, and we hope that you do. We do have some supporters. We need more. We need more of you to contribute as we want to delve into other things that are costly. For instance, we do want to get to video. I don't know if every show will be video, but there are so many costs involved. I'm like, whoa. It's so much easier, cheaper on audio, but there are costs that's going to be out there for editing and for other things that we're going to need to do to make that a possibility. In addition, there are donations that can be used also in the form of advertising. Well, I've gotten approached by different vendors that can take segments and create these different visual effects, put these things out there for me on social media, especially YouTube, to draw in more listeners and then more viewers at that point, as it'll be video. But it costs money. Can't do any of that for free. So we encourage you, if you're listening, please donate and know that it goes for a good cause. Also, we need to do some housekeeping in this section. Hate to go there and be like, gotta talk to you guys. But I ask every show that you remember to rate us the highest on your podcast platform. Well, what we've found out that happens is we have individuals, and we love you so much. You'll go in and you will talk about on your podcast platform. Even if you go into Apple, you'll see this. An individual wrote a glaring review of the show. All talked about the subjects that we have and the wonderful things that we do and what a joy it is to listen. But what they didn't do was click a star. So Apple automatically puts 1 star there. You've got to put the other star. You got to click on the stars. So the highest on Apple is 5. So he or she did not click all the stars, but they gave a glaring review. So what happened is I got this beautiful review and I got 1 star, which brought down the review. See, you got to do it all, people. And I appreciate that beautiful review, but can you go back, he or she listener, and make sure that you correct the star, not 1, but 5, because you gave us 5 in your review, but I need you to hit the star. Please. Friends, family, colleagues should all know about us by now. You should be talking to people, telling them, hey, listen to this podcast. It's a common sense podcast. Listen to it. We're not out here talking about the nonsense that I hear about celebrities and their sex lives. And we're talking about things that everyone should listen to. Even children. Tell children about it. Because we talk to our kids as well. We want to educate them and we want to keep them abreast of what's going on in the world. Also, friends, feel free to go to Etsy. I'm telling you, it's getting out of hand. If you search How Did We Get Here, which is the name of our second segment, How Did We Get Here? Or you search my name, James Graham, or you search Live, Laugh, Talk, you will find beautiful items. We've got dog clothes, ties, socks, hoodies, t-shirts, cups, glasses, tumblers. I mean, it's Live, Laugh, Talk all over the place. Please support the podcast. That way, Andrew and Sparkle created these things. They were the first to do so. I guess that's where Adam came from. They were the first. Okay, no, I just slipped up. Andrew and Sparkle from our 50th episode. You can go back and listen to them. Beautiful people. They created the merchandise, and it is absolutely stunningly beautiful. So, I encourage you to log on. And if you need some help there, I've gotten approval from Sparkle that we can also send you a discount certificate. It should appear on the page. If it doesn't, just please go to admin@livelaughtalk.com. Email us admin@livelaughtalk.com, and we will make sure that we get that coupon out to you. We know everybody's going through tough times, but we want you to have this gear. It looks great. And in addition to that, somebody's going to ask you about it. And then that's your opportunity to let others know about us. This is James and Georgia's baby boy. 2 beautiful parents that had this baby boy. And I'm signing off, as you know. You know it. I can't wait to talk with you again soon.